Hey everybody, and thanks for clicking on this video and checking out my channel, and join me for another MCU review. Leading up to Avengers Endgame, we've been going through all the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies in preparation for the big event, and it is here. Endgame comes out tonight. I am seeing it tonight. So we are here to complete our journey and talk about Ant-Man and the Wasp, the 20th film in the MCU. If you'd like to talk about this movie with me, I welcome you to do so, and I'd love for you to do so. And let's get a fun conversation going as we complete the MCU journey that we started all the way back in February. And with all that out of the way, let's talk about Ant-Man and the Wasp. So Ant-Man and the Wasp is once again directed by Peyton Reed. After taking a plea deal following the events of Civil War, Scott Lang has 3 days left on his house arrest. But after Hank and Hope recruit his help to find Janet, Hank's wife lost in the quantum realm, whom they believe has somehow gained some type of connection with Scott, it's a race against time to save Janet and get Scott home before his sentence is up. So Ant-Man and the Wasp does kind of what the first Ant-Man did, going from a big crossover event movie down to a smaller scaled size story. They did the same thing after Age of Ultron with the first Ant-Man movie, and they've done the same thing here. Right after Avengers Infinity War, we got Ant-Man and the Wasp, which took the scale down to a much smaller size. And rewatching this movie again, it really showed how different it is from the first Ant-Man film. First of all, they ditch all of the heist stuff. The fundamental element that was in the first Ant-Man film was that it was essentially, and at the core of the film, it was a heist film. They were all about planning this heist. This film totally ditches the heist genre and the idea, and is a completely different kind of movie. Essentially, this movie is a cat and mouse chase game with a MacGuffin that three parties all want and are pursuing, and we'll talk a little bit about that later. The MacGuffin in this movie being Hank Pym's lab that he's shrunk down to size that contains his quantum tunnel that's going to allow him access into the quantum realm, that Hank and Hope are using to try and locate Hank Pym's wife and Hope's mother, Janet, who got lost in the quantum realm all the way back when Hank Pym was the Ant-Man. And also the villain of the movie, Ghost, played by Hannah John Kamen, who wants the lab for her own personal reasons, to help solve a condition that she has been cursed with. This movie is also much goofier than I find the first one to be. The characters in this movie I find to be really over-animated than they were in the first film. Everyone gets a joke. It's got a lot more humor in it, a lot more comedy. Very similar to the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, the way that that movie did way more jokes for everybody than they did in the first one. This movie kind of does the same thing. Everybody gets a joke in this movie. Hank Pym, Scott Lang, Hope, even the villains get comedic moments and jokes in this movie. But the humor is really funny and a lot of the jokes land, so that's definitely a positive in my book. This movie is funnier than the first one, in my opinion. And the comedy in the movie really works for the movie that they've set up this movie to be. They also really utilize the shrinking tech in this movie. They use a lot more devices, a lot more techniques, and they really get creative with how they use the shrinking devices and the enlarging device as well. There's a really funny gag, a really funny sequence that I love in this movie, where Scott Lang goes to Cassie's school to retrieve an object, and his regulator kind of malfunctions, and he gets stuck at like a grade school type level. He kind of looks like a kid. They do some really funny visual gags with that joke, and the characters provide a lot of comedy to that situation as well. It's one of my favorite sequences in the movie, and I think it's one of the funniest parts of the movie as well. And speaking of Scott Lang, let's talk about Paul Rudd. So Paul Rudd's character in this movie, I feel, was kind of dumbed down from the first one. Because the film is no longer a heist film, and it kind of ditches all the heist elements of the first film, they never utilize Scott's skills of burglarism and his skills to break and enter into places. All of that's kind of gone. The stuff he's dealing with, he has no idea about it, and they're not his strengths. So Scott in this movie really comes across much dumber than he was in the first film. But Paul Rudd plays this character so likable. You cannot hate this character. Paul Rudd plays him with such a charm and charisma to him. And with his naiveness, he's a really fun character to be around, even if he feels more dumbed down than he was in the first film. And I like what they do with Scott and his relationship to Cassie. Because the characters have grown since the last film, their relationship in this movie I feel is even stronger and better than it even was in the first film. And I really like the chemistry that these two actors have together. But I would say the stars of this Ant-Man movie is actually Evangeline Lilly and Michael Douglas as Hope and Hank Pym. The story of this movie really revolves around them. They have the most to do in this movie because the whole movie is really about getting this lab so that they can save their wife and their mother. So they're the most emotionally involved characters in the story. And because the story is really all about their journey and is essentially their story, they have the most to do in the story. And Evangeline Lilly in this movie as Hope really gets her chance to shine. And you can tell that she has been waiting for this moment and she is ready for it. She's taken full advantage of the opportunity this character has been given. She kicks a lot of butt. She does it with a lot of attitude. She's got a lot of angst. She's a really great character in this movie. I like her a lot more in this movie than I did in the first movie. And I like how her fighting style is more harsher and more thought out. You can really see her working things out throughout her fighting style than Scott does. She has some really awesome action sequences in this movie, And when the two of them fight together, it gives a good contrast to their fighting styles and makes their dynamic more fun to me. And talking about the villain, let's talk about Hannah John Kamen as the villain of Ghost. I honestly think this had the potential to be one of the best MCU villains. She's got a really great backstory. She was involved in an experiment gone wrong that involved Hank Pym, which caused her in this kind of phasing state because the quantum particles mixed with her DNA or something like that. And she's in this constant state of pain where her cells are being constantly torn apart and then stitched back together over and over again. And you really feel for this character. She's not necessarily a villain. She was forced and used as an assassin by S.H.I.E.L.D. and it was still kind of secretly taken by Hydra. And she's got kind of a father figure in Lawrence Fishburne's character. At one point in the movie, she has the idea to kidnap Scott Lang's daughter Cassie in order to get to them, but Lawrence Fishburne is like, no, I won't go that far, I'm not going to help you with that. And he kind of really reels her back, keeps her from going over the line in a way. And I was really on board with her character. I was really interested in this character of Ghost. But there's a third party in this movie that really takes the screen time away from her, and that is the subplot with Walton Goggins' character of Sonny Birch. I did not need this character. This character doesn't really add much to the story. He's really just another obstacle for them to overcome when they already have an obstacle with Ghost to overcome. And the only reason I can think that Walton Goggins is in this movie is to have a really epic car chase sequence for the third act, which is a lot of fun. I really enjoy that car chase in the third act. But that's the only reason his character is here. His character doesn't really add that much else to the story, in my opinion. He's just another obstacle for the characters of Scott Lang, Hank Pym, and Hope to overcome as they're trying to save Janet from the quantum realm. He's just another character that wants this lab. But they already had that with Ghost, and with Ghost's ability to phase and go through objects, she was already a really strong obstacle for them to get over. And all that Walton Goggins' character does in this movie, I feel, is take away from Ghost's screen time and rob her of the chance to be one of the really good MCU villains. She had the potential, she had the setup, she had everything there that really would have made me relate to this villain, and therefore a part of me was kind of rooting for her. But whenever we cut back to the character of Sonny Birch, he just takes away the screen time that really could have been used and utilized for the character of Ghost to make her even stronger. And that's really unfortunate to me. Not to say that Walton Goggins doesn't give a good performance as Sonny Birch. He's okay. He doesn't really tank the movie or anything. It's just the character. The character is what I have a problem with. I don't need him in this movie. I don't feel like he's necessary, and I just feel like he takes away from Hannah John Kamen's character of Ghost, who I thought was set up to be a really great, memorable villain in the MCU. In the end, I like Ant-Man and the Wasp quite a bit. I don't know if I like it as much as the first Ant-Man movie, but it still has some really good action. It continues and expands on the world that they built from Ant-Man and the Wasp and continues that story. It has really likable characters. I feel like it has better humor than the first one does. And it is a movie that I really enjoy revisiting in the MCU. Well guys, those are my thoughts and opinions on Ant-Man and the Wasp. But what did you think about Ant-Man and the Wasp? Comment down below, let me know. I want to know all your thoughts and opinions about this movie. And guys, with the completion of Ant-Man and the Wasp, we have done it. We have completed our MCU journey. All that's left to do is watch Endgame, which comes out tonight. I am seeing it tonight. In some places, it is already out. I have been avoiding the internet. I have not looked at anything. I don't want anything spoiled for me. I want to go in there completely blind. The MCU has really been a remarkable franchise to me, and it's been a really big one in my life. I saw the first Iron Man all the way back in the 3rd grade when I was just 9 years old. My dad took me to see it, and ever since then, I have been hooked on this franchise, on this universe. Every time there's a new installment, every time that there is a new character introduced, I can't wait to see it. And that's all because of the universe and the work and the story building and characters that Marvel and Kevin Feige have put into this universe. Every single one of these movies so far in the MCU has been certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. They have a great audience score, they have a great critical score. None of these movies I dislike. I like all of these movies, some more than others, through the ups and through the downs of the MCU. I have never really been disappointed by an MCU movie. I've always left having a good time with my head up, enjoying what I saw. And even when the stories and the narratives aren't the strongest, it's the characters in this world that I believe are going to carry this franchise on into the future. The characters in these movies, I believe, is what's going to make this franchise timeless and multi-generational, much like the Star Wars movies. To me, the MCU is my Star Wars of my generation. It's crazy to think that just 11 years ago, my dad was taking me to see where this franchise began with Iron Man. And now here I am, 11 years later, I'm about to take him to see what's supposedly the end of this saga of the franchise with Avengers Endgame. And a franchise like this and an opportunity like this, I think only comes once in a lifetime. And I'm really looking forward to checking out Endgame tonight. And I can't wait to see what they have in store for supposedly the completion of this saga. Guys, I just wanted to give a big thank you to anyone that clicked on these videos, whether you watched all of them, whether you watched one of them, whether you watched half of one, anyone that clicked on one of these videos wanted to talk MCU with me, thank you so much for coming on this journey. I can hardly believe it's over, but we have gone through the 20 films of the MCU that have been released. I've had a lot of fun rewatching and talking about these movies, and I hope that you had a lot of fun going through this retrospective kind of look of the MCU with me. And I'm going to be back to talk about Endgame very soon. Guys, thanks again for clicking on this video and checking out my channel. Once again, my name's Zachary Milne. Thank you for talking MCU with me, and I hope you have yourself a great day.